Hey, y'all. What is going on? I'm going to give folks a chance to come in here before we go ahead and get started. Yes, brown girl. Come on. They taught us how to survive, but never how to become. So we gathered in the soft light and started naming what was new. Late night, the truth comes out in the hush. Just giving a few people a chance to get in here so we can get into my thoughts for a minute. Mama said, keep your head high. Grandma taught us to hold it in. All right. Hey. We're going to get started in just a second, giving folks a chance to get in here. So thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Hey, Kirsten. Now I got to work on my little dual device thing here. So let me get on my phone too. Education. All right. Getting started in just a second. I just got to log on my phone too because I can't see. I can't see the screen with the different chats. So yeah. So let me do that and get rid of the sound. Make sure I'm doing everything just right. Silence. All right. Hey, what's going on, y'all? So I'm doing my first live and I haven't done a live in a long time. So I'm a little excited and everything. So I got y'all on the chat on my phone so I can actually see y'all. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I'm not trying to waste anybody's time here. So hey, what's going on, y'all? I am the Brown Girl. I am the creator of the Miseducation of a Brown Girl, and I'm actually going to do something I don't never ever really do. I'm going to discuss what's going on in Jill Scott's internet, and I'm talking about current events. Like I never do this just simply because I try to keep those conversations in my group chat. Yeah, because in my group chat, that is where I can get real messy with it. That's where I can go ahead and say whatever it is that I want about the topic. I can get reckless as I want to be. And I get it, hey, brown girl, you should have matured by now. And I did mature just a teensy bit. I did the work to mature. However, messy is still part of my core. It's still part of my core personality. And that's not something I'm ever willing to let go. I like her. Yeah, I like her, but I do know it's a time and a place for her. And what better reason? What better reason to bring messy brown girl out than the good sis Dr. Cheyenne Bryant? And listen. The good sis has the entire internet right now. What they call it, the news cycle has a whole news cycle in a chokehold between it was her first interview with Joe Biden on the Joe Biden podcast. And then she, skipped right to the Breakfast Club when I think the Breakfast Club was supposed to clear some things up, maybe. But instead, she just cussed us out. And instead, like, I ain't never been cussed out for something that I ain't never do before. And so I made it said that she cussed y'all out because she wouldn't be talking to me like that. And then, like, the most recent interview where she had that interview with that fly-ass journalist with 2 degrees that she could pull out. What's her name? I think it was Marissa Mitchell. I'm pretty sure it was. And that's the interview where she brought our good Lord and Savior into the conversation. Like, she needed us to shut up and leave her alone. So what better way to get people to shut up? Bring God into it. So she thought. But tonight's conversation is going to be just an itty bitty more layered. And I'm going to be honest with y'all. Let me be completely upfront with y'all. This isn't going to be like a gossip. I'm keep looking at my phone for to see if there's chats. This isn't going to be like a gossip live. Like, I'm not going to sit here and drag this woman for Phil, whether or not she has the degrees or not. Actually, I don't care, because I think we can all. But I'm trying to think. I think we can all touch and agree that the messiness of this whole fiasco is definitely what got me here. It got me at my 2 cents to the equation. So I'm not going to drag her, but I'm definitely going to add my 2 cents to the conversation as responsibly as I can. I don't know. Might be responsibly ratchet, but I'm going to be honest with y'all. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm somebody who always thought something was off with her. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh, I always knew something was off with the good sis. I'll be honest with you. I embrace that heifer the same way I embrace feminism. I took the parts that I liked and I left the rest. So when it comes to that part, I'm going to go ahead and let the licensed professionals, and I'm going to let the doctors, the PhDs, I'm going to let them continue to eat this woman up. Because I'll be honest with you, I'm not qualified to sit at that table. And I'm okay. Listen, don't cry for me, Argentina. I am okay with not being qualified to sit at that table. But I will acknowledge the table, because if Dr. Bryant did nothing else these last few weeks, she brought out all of the degree professionals. I'm talking about all the Black men and women in the behavioral health space. She brought them all out. She brought them all out. I didn't know we had that many. When I tell you, I thought it was a shortage of people who look like me in that space. Come to find out, they've been here the whole time. And can we talk about the Black doctors? I didn't know there were so many Black doctors, especially Black women doctors, the PhDs and everything. Child, I see y'all. What do the kids do? They do that? I see y'all. So I'm proud of what she did there, but I'm more proud of the perspective that I'm going to bring this conversation. And I'm bringing this perspective because I was shocked when her book dropped, and after all the interviews, how nonchalant the fellas on Joe Budden's podcast were. Did y'all see that one, the follow-up? They were so nonchalant and dismissive because they didn't want to throw shade on her name because she had a book that dropped that same day. I was like, that's wild to me. And I mean, I say it's wild to me, but I also get it. I don't kick my friends when they're down either. And I definitely don't kick my friends when they're down when I might be the reason that the whole house is burning down. Like, I really feel like Joe Budden was the one that lit the match. Like, let's call a thing a thing. Like, did y'all not watch that episode where he was just letting her talk herself into a grave? And he just said, as you shouldn't. Like, I've seen that work before. I've seen that work before, and he did that. And so, and hey, listen, maybe that's why he don't want to continue to add flames to the fire. It is what it is, but I digress. The perspective that I want to bring to this conversation is the one of an end user. Yeah, I don't think we've heard enough from people like me. I am a Black woman who desperately needed help. And I got that help in the form of therapy. And I'll be honest with you, anybody who is a therapy alum like me, you all know what I'm about to say is so real. The shit is the hardest thing that you've ever had to do in life. Like, the first hardest part is even admitting that your world had gotten so dark and so heavy that you couldn't just push through that shit. And for full transparency, my world was so dark and heavy that I only had one option left, and therapy was not the option that I was choosing. It wasn't even something that I was thinking of. I was beyond the inspirational quotes. I was beyond that point. I was to the point where I didn't even think God heard my prayers anymore. Like, I was in that area. And, and so when people would tell me like, oh, when I finally opened up that I was struggling, people would tell me, oh, girl, you got to pray on it. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, because God don't hear me. And so here I am, you telling me to pray on it. And I am still trying, and you pushing me deeper and deeper in the depths of hell that I'm trying to claw out of. And can I pause here for a second? folks, if somebody finally feels comfortable enough to tell you that they are struggling with their mental health, and I'm not telling you that faith is not a cure for it, but telling them to pray on it and then carrying on or leaving them, that ain't it. That ain't it at all. Like, the one thing that you can say if you don't know what else to say is, what do you need from me? How can I help you? And then work together to find the resources that they need, a professional, so you could do a soft handoff. And if all else fails, if you don't know what to do and you don't know who to call, 988. Like, I know it's the suicide hotline, but they can get you to the right resources to help the people in that moment. So that's my PSA. Back to my thoughts though. And during a time when I needed the therapy, or I was in the darkest part, I didn't even have the language to express what I was going through. Because I'll be honest with you, depression, anxiety, that's not Black people shit in my head. That wasn't shit that we went through. That was white people shit. It is. And that's how I always looked at mental health issues. And that's honestly what took me so long to get to where I was. It took me so long to even just ask for the help. That, and a combination of my natural distrust for the medical system. The more you know about your history, the more you don't trust things. But the idea of trusting someone who did not understand my lived experiences, especially with my mind, that shit was terrifying to me at best. And it didn't help that I didn't know anyone in therapy. I didn't know any Black therapists that I could reach out to. And, truth be told, I came from a long line of survivors, of people who never, ever, 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 ever processed their traumas, or people that were like, I come from people who were experts, top tier level, should teach a class on compartmentalizing everything so they could just move the fuck on with their day. Resting, I was raised by boomers in the silent generation. Resting was not anything that was passed down to your good sis. What I inherited learning how to function through pain. That's the shit that I got. And so when I finally decided to seek therapy, for me, trust was a huge thing that mattered to me. And then finding the right therapist was harder. Honestly, it was harder than even just admitting that I needed a therapist. And then tossed in the mix, because I'm particular, I wanted a Black therapist. More specifically, a Black woman therapist, because I didn't want to spend half my sessions explaining my Black womanhood to somebody who didn't live it. So that made my options, that made my choices like slim. Okay. Like, cause it's not like you can go onto your insurance website and be like, oh, Black therapist, Black woman therapist. Like, there's no search option that way. And then like not being familiar with the language, or not even knowing how to find a therapist that was culturally competent. I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, I honestly, bitch, I was suffering. I didn't know all the things to ask for, to look for. And, when like I was ended up frustrated more than anything when I was looking for the right therapist for me. And that's why I'm so thankful and grateful for Dr. Raquel Martin, because listen, one of the resources that I found on her website was questions to ask your therapist to determine that they're culturally competent in the event that you cannot find a Black therapist and everything. Like, there are good white therapists, good white women therapists. My mom has a dope ass one. But she was able to ask the questions to see, will the good sis understand what I'm going through or what I went through, without inserting herself. So it was like the resources on Dr. Raquel's website, it was a free resource. So I loved it. But fortunately for me, I found a Black therapist, one that understood what being on all the time meant. Because if you don't live it, you don't know it. One that understood my hyper independence, my survival mode, my family dynamics, abandonment issues from a woman that was raised in a 2-parent household, my ADHD for Black girls, because that was way different than what the book told us ADHD was. the different traumas that I went through, the faith that I was struggling with, because another thing I wanted a therapist that was Christian based because I was struggling with my faith, and when you're struggling with your faith and your mental health, child, that right there, I don't wish that on my worst enemy at all. So I just know that during that time, trying to find someone that can handle all those things and handle them with care and nuance, that was hard. That shit was hard. I went through 7 therapists before I found the right one. And honestly, that's why the women and men like Dr. Bryant, I think that's why they gain influence so quickly in our community, because culturally, we've all been looking for people who sound like us, who look like us, who understand us, who make it so that we don't sound crazy when we're talking about our lived experiences. And so when we find one, and they come along and they talk that talk, they validate our experiences, they move the same way that we move. They're sounding educated, they're sounding grounded, they have like that faith, that strong faith that we're all walking in, so they got that spiritual grounding. We naturally lean in. Like we naturally like, yo, this shit right here, like she talking that shit. Like we trust them. And we trust them almost unconditionally. Like we trust them without even knowing who they are or what their accreditations are. Credibility is, and I had to learn on my own mental health journey is that feeling emotionally seen, that shit is powerful. However, being emotionally, I'm trying to think of the right way to say it. Being emotionally seen is powerful, but being safely guided is different. And I don't think we talk about that distinction enough. And I think that's why the situation with Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, which I'm saying doctor because she has one of those honorary degrees, so I'm gonna give her that. And she trademarked doctor. I'm gonna give her that. But I think that's why it bothered me so much, because it wasn't an issue about somebody just lying about their credentials. It was, oh, this sounds terrible when I'm about to say this, but it is what it is. We all family here right now. My issue was the mental health grifters. Yeah, that's my issue. Mental health grifters who take advantage of an already emotionally vulnerable Black community. Like we build trust with someone, inserting themselves as like a mental health authority. And in this case, she presented herself as an authority, only to turn around after she got our trust, only to turn around after she got our money, only to turn around after she got our attention and our time, and turn around and say that she moves the way that she moves without a license, to be clear, so that she can make more money. She got on Jill Scott's internet and said she moves the way she moves without a license to make more money, not to service an underserved community, but to make more money. And then for shits and giggles and a little razzle dazzle, she went ahead and sprinkled misinformation into the mix as well. And when you sprinkle that misinformation into that slick talk, now you're making it sound like moving unethically. You're making that sound like that shit is sweet. And to my therapy alum, all of us know that trust is such a sacred thing when it comes to therapy, especially when it comes to Black people. And that little misinformation that she gave us, that bit of the seed that she planted, shattered that trust, in my opinion. It shattered that trust for an entire industry. And what scares me the most isn't just this specific situation. What scares me the most is what happens next. Because Black people, can we call a thing a thing? We're hesitant when it comes to seeking therapy. We're hesitant when it comes to acknowledging our mental and our emotional health. This shit is new to us. We're not a generation into this at all. we've just started embracing it. We just started talking about it. We're already hesitant to distrust we're already hesitant to trust so many different industries. Mental health is one of them. The mental health systems is another one. We're hesitant just to be vulnerable. And that is one of the major things that you need in order to do the work that we got to do to get to a place where we can live, instead of just surviving. And when we encounter those mental health grifters before we run into an actual ethical care, my fear is some people may never seek the care that they need. And I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I'm people. If I ran into the shit that she was moving and that she was spewing and everything, I would have never went to therapy. I was like, shit sound kind of shady to me. Like, and I would have never did it. And do you know what that means? Like, I'm like being completely honest. If I did not get the help that I needed, I would not be speaking to you today. I was fully prepared to check out. I had my affairs in order. I would not be here. And so that's why I say people like Dr. Bryant, they are dangerous to our culture. And I know somebody might be watching out there on the internet and about to come at my neck saying like dangerous might be a little extreme. And I get it. I'm an extremist. Like if I sound like I'm doing the most, I am. But what I also want to bring to the front of the room is these people, what they're doing. Like these people, they're sharing their lived experiences and their lessons, and they are normalizing mental health in our community. And I know that's the argument that people want to give to me and everything. But before you come at me and hurt my little feelings, I'm not anti sharing your experiences online. Hell, my entire platform is about sharing my experiences online. I share my lessons, I share my wins, my losses. I share questions and everything that I ask myself when I'm trying to explore my Black womanhood. But I'm also very intentional about not presenting myself as a therapist. That's the difference. And listen, I got a little credential behind my name and everything. Like I am a certified transformation coach and a certified life coach. However, I still don't present myself in those spaces because to me, I have not done enough work in that space to know for sure that I'm not going to be doing more harm than good to Black women, because that's my target audience. And I think we can all touch and agree. Hey, how you doing, gang? Kim? Hi, Kim. I think we can all touch and agree there is a difference between sharing your lived experiences and representing yourself as a clinical authority. What do kids do? 6'7", 6'7"? I don't know what that means. I don't know why I just did that. I just felt young for 2 seconds. Don't judge me for it. But it's social media. It's social media. And I blame social media for a lot of shit, actually. Especially with this right here, because I think social media has blurred the line so badly when it comes to mental health and that field. Because now therapy language has become a brand. And I think we've all seen it, healing, trauma, softness, attachment, narcissism. All these words get thrown around like Pokemon. Like every time you turn around, somebody's talking the therapy language. They're moving that way all the time. And somewhere along the line, healing stopped becoming something that people pursued and started becoming personality traits. And I know, I remember, and I'm pointing at you, Kirsten, like you could see me. But I remember that's a conversation that you and I had. People just talking like, hey, I have anxiety, and that's their whole personality now. And I'm like, no, actually, you're somebody who manages anxiety. But when healing became a brand and trauma became content, emotional intelligence became aesthetics, therapy language became social currency. And honestly, we're at the point where this is bigger than just one woman. I think social media went ahead and created a whole environment where performance gets rewarded more than nuance. And now look at us. We following a grifter. Okay. And like it got us following a grifter because it felt comfortable, it felt safe, it felt good, it felt like something that we got, it felt like people got us. But I don't know if you guys noticed or if you followed Dr. Bryant for some time, the more the internet changed, I noticed that her content changed too. Okay, started making little shifts, and her newer shit started making me feel uncomfortable. I was like, whoa, that's that's weird. Like it started feeling less like nuanced mental health conversations, and then it started feeling more like gender war commentary that was packaged into therapy language. And I get it. Everybody got their opinions about relationships, and everybody has something to say about men and women. It's all the same. Hold on, let's see what. Yeah. Oh, she didn't sit well with you from the start. So with me, like I said, I wasn't. I followed her from the beginning and everything, and it wasn't one of those things where I always thought that she was off. I'm looking at the chat instead of the camera. It wasn't one of those things there. I thought that she was off, but I will acknowledge this. I didn't think she was off, but I don't follow people that way because by the time I was introduced to her, I had already gone through therapy. So to me, I was like, I'll pick and choose what sounds good because some of her stuff sounded all right. Some of her stuff, I was like, yo, this actually do align with something that I know, something that I'm familiar with. But then some of the stuff, I'm like, I'm not gonna take that. I'm not gonna embrace that one and everything. Like I a la carted her content. Like I'll take this, put it in my pocket and save for later. But the rest of that shit, she can go ahead and save that for somebody else. So look, kudos to you, girl, that it didn't sit well with you from the rip. Like I wish I picked up on that sooner. But one of the things that I did notice is that, when her content started making that shift where it was more along the line of like feeding gender wars, that's where I was like, this is getting tricky. And like, honestly, and that's not even an issue. It's not an issue because, people have opinions. People talk about shit. But it's when those opinions, they started putting through a lens of mental health authority. That's when shit gets real weird to me. Because now it's coming across that your commentary is starting to sound like psychological fact. And one thing a grifter gonna do is grift. And sis managed to do just that because she managed to shift her messaging so that it fed the emotional, the emotional extremes on both sides. The men loved her because, she promoted ideas around softness, around submission, about never denying her husband sexually, about protecting the male ego and traditional gender dynamics. Like, listen, if I was a penis owner, I'd be all for her too. And she was pretty, but then at the same time, and this is where she was good. At the same time, women also felt validated whenever she criticized men, talked about broken homes, emotional dysfunction. And when she started adding those in, what started happening is she mastered that shit. She mastered it. Like, she always talked about her pop was her pop was out in the streets, and she definitely got that fast talking ability. Like I come from people that used to be outside in the streets. I come from hustlers. I know when a hustler start talking fast and certain and start throwing like little words in there, combinations and everything, they get you so caught up in their wordplay that you don't realize that you're in the midst of being scammed. And that's what was happening. So when she mastered emotionally feeding both sides of the gender war while wrapping it all up in therapeutic authority, child, she was more dangerous than Kevin Samuels. I know he just called a stray. He not even breathing on this earth no more. I don't even know why I said that. That was fucked up what I said. But I'll be honest with you. I don't think most licensed professionals would have even sounded the alarm at all on her, especially this loudly as the way they're coming in, if her messaging just stayed in the lane of general self-help, or general self-help commentary, relationship opinions, motivational speaking, shit, even spicy internet takes. Like give your 2 cents up and everything. People might not agree with her shit. However, they might not agree with it. Her delivery was always. I don't know if y'all picked up on it. I always thought her delivery was harsh. It was a little harsh, but people might not have believed in what she said or her delivery, or been like, Kirsten, and side eyed the shit out of her, like, and some people might have just thought that she was definitely toxic. But the real shift that got the license, men and women out here in these streets, out here working, is when her misinformation, basically started crossing into a therapy that would genuinely impact how people understood mental health care, how people would seek mental health care, what people would expect in therapy, what they would expect it to look like. Because listen, any of us has ever been, did it look like how I ever looked on TV? Because it didn't for me. First of all, well, mine is online most of the time, but when I did go in person, there was no couch. I was in a chair. And the big thing, and this is the part that really, really got me, is when she started talking about the misinformation, when it started talking about diagnosis. And that's the part that I was like, oh shit, that was scary to me. Hold on 1 second, because I definitely did not plug my laptop back up. 1 minute. All right, here we go. All right, I'm back. Okay, my bad. I didn't plug my laptop. I was about to die on this. But the misinformation that she was just throwing out there, like, she was basically saying she doesn't have a license because she doesn't want to do insurance, and in order to bill insurance, something like she said something along the line with diagnosis, and I'm just like, and talking about how people don't always want a diagnosis. Did she really just shit on people getting diagnosis? Like, is that happening? Was that happening in real time? Like, I was stuck when I had to rewind it just to make sure I heard what I heard. Okay. So, and that's the part that to me made it dangerous. And I think that's when the other professionals felt the same way, because people already have a tough time to trust the process, and when she started going off on that deep end, that's when the profession, there's a hold up, bitch, pump your brakes, because this ain't it. Because now it's not just spicy talk. Now you're not just doing these interviews and fake treating these stars in these interviews, calling them sessions. Now what you're doing is potentially impacting whether or not Black people seek help. And Black people is one of her main target audience. She's always on the Black podcast and everything. And that would negatively impact our community. That's exactly why I picked up. Oh yeah, the fast double talk. See, it was that fast double talk, Harrison. You right. And I still say it's dangerous. Like, that's the sport I'm ready to die on, because again, we're already behind when it comes to normalizing conversations around emotional and mental health. We're behind that shit. We're already hesitant and skeptical. We're already trying to unlearn generations and generations of survival mode, that was passed down to us as tradition because of oppression and the shit that our grandparents, our great grandparents, our nanas all went through. That misinformation in this space, that was irresponsible. And I know, and she's just an example that I'm using tonight, but it's not just her. It's all the mental health grifters out there, all the ones that are feeding on the Black community, where, with the, all the grifting experts, I should say, right now it's the relationships. They like to dig in on that. Knowing already that we already struggling with our relationships and the different types of traumas, the survival mode, economic pressures, the emotional disconnect, the generational wounds, all that shit. And then one of the things that I started noticing with her content as well, she started mixing in that luxury culture. Did y'all notice how she started talking about the high value of a man and the value was always attached to dollars and everything? And like, then it was harsh deliveries for somebody that was not in that high value. And she just framed it as truth telling. I was like, child, don't talk to me like that. My therapist would never. And so she had finally gotten to a point to me where she wasn't giving commentary, and if she was, that's fine. But I mean, she wasn't giving therapy. Like, she wasn't giving therapy at all. Now that I do a look back on it, she wasn't giving therapy. She was just scamming us. However, scamming people and just giving your commentary, giving your 2 cents, and adding your personal experiences in how you move with your content, that's fine. That is fine. That is fine. I'm not saying that's something that you shouldn't do. The issue is when you put yourself as a mental health authority with those opinions. That's where the problem is, and that's where just be honest. Be honest with how you're doing it, because Black people, they deserve more clarity when it comes to that. They deserve more respect, more honesty, because we look at people differently when we think they're a therapist. We look at people differently when we think they're an expert. We look at these people that especially look like us. We look at them different. And I think that's a big issue right now, is that these internet personalities and the grifters, they're becoming replacements for community care. There used to be a time when community care was a thing. People are emotionally starving out there. We in these streets like trying to figure shit out regularly, because a lot of people, they might not have a safe family. They might not have safe friendships and safe churches or partnerships or safe communities. Shit, the harm that they might be getting done might be in those spaces. So now if you don't have a safe space to go and you don't have community, child, now podcasts become therapy. The comment section becomes support groups. Creators become emotional support systems, and live streams become companionship. And that, I'll be honest with you, sometimes that's beautiful. Sometimes that shit is actually beautiful. And I think these online spaces have definitely served its purpose of normalizing conversations around mental health, because it's making our world smaller. It's making us realize that we are not alone in our managing different conditions, undiagnosed conditions, getting diagnosed. We realize that we're not alone. But validation is not the same thing as support. And that's the thing. Some people, they are feeling emotionally seen online. And child, let me tell you, when I feel emotionally seen, chef's kiss. However, if you're not being safely guided towards healing, or safely guided towards a process, safely guided to whatever it is that you need to work through, then it's not what you need. And some people, they don't need another viral clip. Shit, I don't think any of us need another viral clip. But people need actual help. They need actual support systems. They need actual healing spaces. They need actual licensed care or coaches that don't pretend they're therapists. That part. They need coaches that don't pretend they're therapists. And I honestly think I think the biggest, I'm about to be extreme again, just so that y'all know. I think the biggest victim in all this, in my opinion, is Black culture itself. Yeah. It's Black culture. Like, just knowing that somebody who looks like us got in here and just scammed us, and now it's leaving Black therapists that are really trying to ethically help people have to carry the load to fix this mistake. They have to work twice as hard rebuilding trust and untangling misinformation that they didn't create. And honestly, that's not fair for them. Shit, honestly, it's not fair for us. Like, we ain't asked to be scammed. We ain't asked for this shit. But now you have the people that are actually truly doing the ethical work in our communities, that are actually licensed. These Black therapists have to work harder. And I can only imagine, like, I have Black therapist friends, and I already know what they deal with, having to carry the emotional labor of a traumatized community. Yeah, I mean, let's just call a thing a thing. Is so many of us probably walking around here with undiagnosed PTSD, and they have to guide us through that. Now they have to fight the internet. Not just helping us. Now they got to be put their capes on and fight the internet. Now they have to go ahead and debunk misinformation. Correct warped thoughts about therapy. Compete with fucking internet personalities. They had to become influencers just to be visible, and then explain over and over and over again what therapy actually is. And the sad part really is the ethical therapists are usually less sensational. They speak carefully because they want to keep their license so they can continue to help people. They respect nuance. They avoid absolutes. What else? They don't reduce human behavior to sound bites and viral moments. But the fucked up part is social media rewards harshness. It rewards certainty, emotional triggering, and of course, the creme de la creme, the most profitable thing there is on Beyonce's internet is the gender wars. So the people that are doing the deepest work often are not algorithm friendly. So we don't see them. We see the grifters. And that's heartbreaking. Because our people, like if you're pro black, that our people deserve support. We deserve honesty. Um, we don't deserve to be profited off of. Our pain doesn't deserve to be profited off of. Our healing doesn't deserve to be profited off of. We don't deserve to be scammed and grifted. You know, we deserve care that helps us heal. That's it. That's it. Helps us move on, helps us live, helps us not be surviving all the time, and we don't want content that just helps us cope beautifully. And again, I bring this back to why I'm so intentional about my platform. I'm not a therapist, child. I'm not a therapist, but I am a Black woman who survived herself. But I survived myself with the assistance of a dope ass therapist. I do share my lessons. I do share my questions. I do share my experiences. I share my story. But I do that with the hope of encouraging other women who look like me to either get the help that they need or do the introspection that they need or say to themselves, like, yo, shit is tricky out here. I might need something else. I might need a little bit more. Or, I just want to enhance our culture. I want our culture to be better, and our culture will be better with the normalization of behavioral health. But one of the things that I don't do as much as I make sure I'm intentional, I will never blur the line between my lived experiences and licensed expertise. No, no, listen, I don't even have a board to report to, but that would be unethical to me morally, and yeah, I don't want to do anything that would stop people from getting the care that they need. So I say all this to say, and to all the men and women out there, especially Black men and women, don't let the shenanigans these last few weeks have caused to stop you from getting the help that you need. Do your research, know the differences between life coaches and therapists. Check with your employer to see if they have an employee assistance program, because a lot of times those employee assistance programs, um, they come with free sessions for therapy, and a lot of people, they get nervous about, oh, but I don't want my employer to know. They're bound by HIPAA as well. So what you discuss in those sessions doesn't come back to your employer, but there are certain plans that will report back if it's like court ordered, or if it is if you're going to do something that's going to harm yourself or others, they may go ahead and share it with others. So it depends on the plan. So like, that's just full transparency. Your insurance, like, I know she was talking about direct bill and everything on Joe Budden podcast. These are rich men that she's talking to. The everyday person, you have insurance to make sure that you have access to care. And there was a couple laws that were passed a few years back where a lot of the plans had to look at behavioral health the same way they look at your regular physical health. So they couldn't like make the plans any different. So in my case, I have a plan. I have a PPO plan that's 80/20. The plan pays 80%, I pay 20%. Guess what? I only paid 20% of my therapist bill. And if you're going to an in-network therapist, child, listen, that 20% ain't what they charge. Like, it's not what they would charge somebody with no insurance. That 20% is based off the contracted amount that they agreed to with the insurance companies. And where I will say this, how the insurance companies do pay doctors and therapists is fucked up. However, for the end user, your premiums is taking care of you. So just to kind of give you an example, my therapy visits was $12.80. That was my 20%, $12.80. And so I share that, not saying that everybody's bill is going to be the same, but I share that because sometimes money is one of the things that keep people from getting the care that they need. Like, it's a barrier, it's a hurdle. So if you have health insurance, look into your plan, do your research. If you have the EAP plan, you might have free sessions. If you have regular insurance, you'll have something for behavioral health with your insurance company that might be affordable. So just do your research. And the last thing that I definitely want to leave with us, and it's just because there's so much going on in the world, I'm going to talk to my fellas directly. Black men, listen, I know so many amazing Black men that I get to share this earth with and everything. And so I say this to you, and I know that the men that I don't know, the men that are less amazing, the men that are struggling with things, do not be afraid to get the help that you need. Do not be afraid of getting a diagnosis. And if you don't want to do it for yourself just yet, if you can't see yourself being your reason just yet, just think of it this way. When you take care of your mental and emotional health, that is the most beautiful form of protecting Black women there could ever be. That's it. If you ever considered yourself a protector, if you ever considered yourself somebody that's always going to protect Black women, take care of your mental and emotional health. If there's a diagnosis to get it. If there's therapy to do it. If there's work that has to be done, do it. Because let me tell you, that one thing is hard, but it protects us more than you'll ever know. And it brings us closer. So that's all I got for y'all tonight. It is the Brown Girl. I am the creator of Miseducation of a Brown Girl. And if you enjoyed anything that you heard tonight, be sure to like, follow, and share. I beg of you, please. I'm begging y'all. Please like, follow, and share. I need this. I need y'all. But yeah, it's me. It's the Brown Girl. I want to thank y'all for showing up. I see my crew over here, the Game Queen. She got an event coming up this the 22nd. I think it's this Friday, right? We got something going on because I love what she got coming on because she got a birthday coming up. I got my homegirl. Actually, this is 2/3 of the Meraki Collective right there. A dope, amazing Black woman-owned business. Like, they curate the most amazing events, especially if you're a spoken word artist, if you like anything when it comes to being a wordsmith, art, music, stuff like that. Check them out because they have always given me a good time. So, ladies and gents, thank y'all for showing up tonight. I appreciate you more than you know, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye. All right, now I gotta figure out how to end it. So stick with me for a second while I end stream. Bam, here we go. Here we go. Bye, y'all. And there.